We're here with Smyrna High School head coach Mike Judy. Coach, thanks so much for your time today.
Hey, thank you.
So I'm glad we could connect today, Coach. I know a lot's been happening over the last several weeks. Had a rocky start to the season and then a pretty crazy last couple weeks. We've really made some waves around Delaware. Can you talk a little bit about how the whole experience has been, both on and off the field, and what it's meant for your team?
Yeah, absolutely. We started off with a really tough schedule to begin with. We opened with Middletown, who's a perennial powerhouse, in week 1, and Glen Elg, who was state runners-up in Maryland, in week 2. And we lost both those games in a pretty tight battles. And then, when your team's 0-2 to start the season, a lot of teams can start reeling at that point. And really proud of the guys for not really giving in and continuing to work hard day in and day out. And then we were able to come up against maybe our toughest opponent that we would face in reigning state champions, Sussex Central. So, we had an absolute battle with them. We ended up, coming out victorious. Really tough defensive battle on both sides of the ball. And, we just ended up it was a war of attrition, and we ended up making less mistakes in the end and able to pull out a victory. That was also, was always a very important game. Is that week of the year is our childhood cancer awareness game, which we recognize members of the community, who are fighting currently or who have been fighting childhood cancer. It's a very touching night. It's one of those ones that always bring some tears to my eyes and it always gets me a little bit more juiced, not just for the game, but just because of how grateful I am with my own son and with these young men that I coach, that they have their health right now, and that you don't want to take those things for granted. So then we went into the next week against Salesianum, who we have a long history with, of battling. They're a perennial powerhouse private school in Delaware, and they were state runners-up last year. And we ended up, having a battle of a game. We ended up coming out victorious in that one as well. Offense really started clicking in that Salesianum game, and the defense, had a tremendous effort and shut them out. We started off the Sussex Tech week with with the news that Troy Haynes, a recent graduate of Woodbridge High School down in southern Delaware, had passed away from his 6 or 7 month long battle with a rare form of kidney cancer. The term "Fight Like 4" had been such a rallying cry throughout the state. Not only for awareness of cancer and childhood cancer, but also just for how delicate life is and how things can change so quickly. And we were all pulling for Troy, and he fought a courageous battle, and he gave it his all, just like the champion he was. And we got to recognize him throughout the state. All the schools and games were dedicated to him throughout the state, but we got an opportunity to kind of put our own touch on it. And one of the first things we did was make sure that our number 4, which is the jersey number of that Troy would wear, our number 4, CJ Smith, who's a senior, was our flag bearer. He led us out, and then we were all wearing orange, in recognition of awareness of kidney cancer, which is what he suffered from. And then, we were able to raise some money along the way as well through some donations to give to the Haynes family. And our band even got in on the action a little bit, and they did an unbelievable job. They during their marching band sequence during halftime, they used their own bodies to spell out the name Troy in dedication to him, and played some touching songs, and we were able to get some aerial views from it, and it was very well done by Josh Palmer and the band, and it was something that just kind of like the cherry on top of in a situation like that, there's not much you can do for the family. You feel like you want to help and you want to do something for the community. And I think sometimes just letting them know that you care and you care about them and you understand their suffering, and we wish we could change it for you, but we can't. But we're thinking about you. I think that's the best you can do in those situations. It not only, was an opportunity for our team to try to win a game against Sussex Tech, but it was also a great opportunity for us to allow our young guys a chance to really, kind of understand that the game is just part of life. It's not everything. There are more important things, but although football is very important to us and our players, to recognize that we have our health and we need to cherish every day that you're here, and live life to the fullest. And I think it was a great way to communicate that and get us recharged and kind of reset about what's important in life. And our kids did a great job with that under some senior leadership. Those guys really hammered that message home about how blessed we are to be able to play this game.
Yeah.
And we ended up playing Sussex Tech. Last year, we were able to avenge a bad loss from last year with a 28-0 victory. Both the Salesianum and the Sussex Tech games, our defense held the offenses to less than 10 yards of offense total in both games, and it was a tremendous effort all around.
It's hard to believe. That's wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And in both games, we registered eight sacks or more. So, our guys are getting after it and have really kind of come into their own. And then the offense, which is, the pivot point of the offense is going to be at the offensive line. All young, all underclassmen except for one senior. Newly announced captain, Andrew Benedictus Bain. Yes, sir. He's well deserving. He just got announced captain today for our third and final captain. He's the leader of that O-line, and those young guys are coming along very nicely. And they're doing a great job. And there's a rotation of about 5 or 6 underclassmen rotating into the 4 other spots, both guards and both tackles. And they've just continued to grow and grow and grow. So I'm really happy with their progress. And what a better, no better way to top off this 3-game run than to get our last score with a nice long, well-blocked running play.
Yeah.
Really show that those guys have arrived.
Absolutely. You mentioned a lot there, from the strong emotions surrounding the last couple games to different guys stepping up and coming into their own. One thing that I'm really curious about is, when we think about football, as a former player myself, one of the biggest things that I learned from football is dealing with adversity. And especially when you consider all of the hype going into the season surrounding Smyrna and football and what you guys are going to do, it's really difficult to bounce back after 2 losses to really just crush 2 of the top teams in the state. Can you just mention or tell me a little bit more about what really set the guys off to deal with that adversity and attack those last 3 games with the right mindset after a tough first 2 games?
Yeah. Well, I think like you said, the critical word is the mindset. And, I very much am trying to run this program with transparency. We openly talk about, our schedule. We talk about, we're not seeking out teams that you could easily beat. And,
Sure.
we're not trying to get a running clock every week and have a less of a challenge. So we seek out great competition. We seek out the toughest teams that we can play, and our kids know this. And I know sometimes the number in the wins column seems to be the most important thing for many people, especially outside the program. But the reality is that's just one piece to this big puzzle.
Sure.
And and from my own philosophy, I think the challenge of football, the challenges that football brings on a weekly, daily basis, yearly basis, are some of the most rewarding obstacles that you can face in your life, especially as a young adult. when you're together as a team and you're working, you're working really hard and throughout the off season and August camp, and then you get into the season, you really learn that you have to lean on your brothers to your left and to your right. And it's just something that we preach, and we really try to live that. We talk about it all the time is, adversity hits. And what we often consider adversity, which in football is, a play doesn't go your way, or we throw an interception, or we turn the ball over, or, the other team makes a great play. And just to put that into perspective, that you can't focus too long on that. You have to, yes, we're going to face really tough teams, but we're going to build up and take that final exam on Friday. We're going to study our butts off all week long and take that final exam, and then we're going to put it to rest, and we're going to go to work on the next one. And if you we talk about stacking practices, stacking a good practice on top of another good practice, day after day. And how many good practices can you stack on top of each other this week? And we pick a player of the day, a couple players of the day each day from our team, and it's not always the kid that's the best, the best athlete or the starter. Oftentimes it's the guy who gave us the best look in D team, or the offensive lineman that blocked the hardest when we're running scout team D. Or the guy who's running around trying to help with filming. We need somebody to film something, and the kid just volunteers. I got it. And he grabs the phone and goes, runs and does it. We want everybody to understand how important their role is, whether you're a starter, you're a backup, or you're a young guy that's deeper in the depth chart. Everybody's important, and we need everybody to try to practice like a champion. We've had some great guys at practice these past couple weeks that have done a tremendous job, and a couple of those guys is there's some young players in our program, or some new players in our program that just have been working their tail off, even though they're not in a starting role, to be able to push our team to have a great practice. Some of those guys are Jaden Wright, a defensive lineman, Dwayne Ratcliffe, defensive lineman, Shane Wilson. He's an underclassman, plays some linebacker, but he'll step in. Shane will step in and play anything. He stepped in at a JV game when our center got injured, and he plays linebacker, and he says, "I'll do it." He just didn't even hesitate, just stepped in and did it. So that's the type of effort and attitude you need in a good program. And when you have those things, when you have that effort and you have the right attitude, and you look at that daunting schedule, it doesn't seem so bad when you're taking it each rep at a time, a drill at a time, a day at a time. And then you realize, man, as a whole team, we've been really stacking these things together. We've got a good chance to compete on Friday night. Right. So that's kind of our approach. And I think that in of itself is probably one of the greatest lessons that us as coaches can give to these young guys is, everybody wants the dream house and the dream job, and everybody wants to be a superstar, but it takes a lot of, I hate the term grinding, but it takes that grind. It does. It takes it, and you're going to have to get your hands dirty, and you're going to have to really put in the work. When nobody's looking and nobody's there to tell you great job, you're going to have to be on your toes and doing the right thing and consistently doing it day after day. And if they can do that, then no matter what our talent level is, I feel we have a chance to compete with these good teams. Yeah. And that, I think, translates to life in a major way for these young adults that are going to be young men soon. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to set them up for some success, not just on the football field, but with the way that they approach their daily life, and understanding that if I want that shiny prize at the end, I'm going to have to do some work ahead of time, and it's not going to be instant gratification. And our kids in this program right now are doing a wonderful job of really buying into that and working their tails off all the time.
And I want to transition that into really the last point that I want to touch on today, Coach, is We're 5 games into the season. We're really rocking and rolling and seem to be firing all cylinders. What are your thoughts on I guess, how you're going to approach this week and look forward to this upcoming game and the rest of the season?
Yeah, I feel like week 5 is usually when, if you don't have to win every game, but you're starting to hit your groove. From what's working for your team from a work capacity. How much can you work before they need to kind of settle down and relax a little bit? Because I'm also a firm believer. I kind of mentioned the whole grind thing. I think there's a saturation point for every kid. Every person has a saturation point where they're just not going to be able to sustain any longer. And I think working in and around that saturation point is a way to raise, to raise that bar a little bit. Is you take them to the brink where I can't learn one more thing. I can't.
Right.
I've learned so much today that anything else is going to be lost in this process of me making these connections. If you can push the kids to that area, whether emotionally, mentally, and physically, but don't overdo it. I think you can really push your growth of your team, and I feel like we do. My staff and these kids do a great job of kind of staying right near that saturation point where we're pushing the envelope, but not overworking them. Where our bodies are being rested, we're taking care of our bodies, we're making sure we're sharp mentally. If something is not, if everybody doesn't know how to do this thing, then it gets dropped from the game plan. Those types of little small like adjustments that we make as a program, I think are where we are right now. Is we're finding where that saturation point is, or we have found where it is, and we're living in that. Right in that saturation point where we're pushing them as hard as we can without overdoing it. And this is, again, the midpoint of the season is a great time to be there, because now everything you're looking at the other side of the mountain now. As we get into this latter part of the season, yes, we've had some tremendously difficult opponents to start the season. But now we're getting into the real meat of the schedule, which is our Henlopen North Conference opponents, where if you lose one or two of these games, it could completely knock you out of playoff contention, if that's a team goal, which it is for us. But more importantly, these are the teams that we face year in and year out. These are the teams that oftentimes get themed as our rivals, and there's long histories between them. So these games mean a lot, just not to our program, but to our community. These are the games played against our surrounding communities and towns, and it's one of those things. The Henlopen North is, in my opinion, and arguably the toughest conference in the state, top to bottom. It's a meat grinder of a schedule. Every team is physical. Every team is physical. And we kind of beat the mess out of each other going into the end of the season a lot. But we've kicked off our season so far by beating Sussex Central and Sussex Tech, both of whom are conference foes. And now we're kind of riding into Dover. And Dover has the returning Delaware Player of the Year at running back in Javon Peace. He's a tremendous athlete. He's a great young man. I know him personally. And he's outstanding, competitive, fiery kid. He's fast, powerful. He's got great balance. He kind of does it all. He's an easy Division I scholarship kid, and surrounded by some very good athletes out there for Dover. So we are going to have our hands full, trying to contain him, and also still have to play against these other great athletes they have. But this is the type of challenge that we want as a program. We want to be pushed, and when our defense is firing on all cylinders, and people are talking about how great we are, this is the perfect time to really decide, as a program, are we going to raise the bar again? 2 straight shutouts of some really, really good opponents. Is playing like that going to be enough to beat Dover? My answer is real simple. No, it's not. If you don't grow this week, if you don't stack 3 practices in a row this week and raise that bar, live in that saturation point a little bit longer, you're not going to beat Dover. You have to continue to grow, because just as they're coming off a game and we're coming off a game, we're trying to get better and they're trying to get better. So it's going to be 2 really good teams facing each other on Friday night against Dover. And the team that's going to make the least amount of mistakes is going to win this game. So we're doing everything in our power this week to avoid self-inflicted wounds and keep our execution at a high level and see if we can come out victorious. And then as we going past Dover, I never look beyond anybody other than just to see who we play. The other teams in our conference are just as dangerous. All of them have either big, tough guys, physical lines, physical defenses, or backs and skill guys that can take it to the house at any moment. So we will continue to battle week in and week out throughout the season, and to continue to try to win one game at a time, and see if we can win the Henlopen North for 4th time in 5 years.
Coach, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad we got to get the inside scoop on Smyrna football.
My pleasure. Thank you.